effective, gentle therapy method that is in harmony with nature, causes no pain and has no harmful side effects. That is the fundamental wish expressed by countless patients today. Environmental stress factors such as electrosmog, radiation, air pollution, residues and additives in food, along with a great many other things, are all burdens which can hardly be overlooked and evaluated these days. The allergies, gastrointestinal illnesses, headaches, hay fever, asthma, dermatological disorders, problems with skeletal and muscular movement, etc., resulting from such stress factors are for the most part not even being traced back to these burdens. All too often, combating such complaints by means of medication unfortunately does not get rid of the cause itself. A large number of patients are anything but satisfied. In surveys, nearly 50% of those interviewed stated that they are not content with the success of the cures and that they are looking for a better therapy. Which means that something has to happen. Over 25 years ago, a pioneering discovery was made that opened up new horizons in medicine. That discovery forms the basis of today's BICOM bioresonance therapy, a therapy that consists not only of a device, the BICOM 2000, but moreover one which represents a comprehensive, completely new therapy method. We want to use this film to show you what this revolutionary new therapy method can do and how it functions. BICOM bioresonance therapy is a special procedure with which the therapist can find out the cause of illnesses and then go on to treat the patient in a way they find agreeable. The procedure has been tested by therapists for years and applied on thousands of patients successfully.
It is an absolute joy for a doctor. That naturally applies especially in treating children with cases of serious neurodermatitis, or also those with allergic bronchial asthma. Here the success ratio lies at about 90%. And that is a very high result, above all when one takes into consideration that children with neurodermatitis who are really seriously ill frequently have to undergo years of treatment. And considering the aspect that there are even those of us in Orthodox medicine who tell the mothers that these symptoms are incurable, and that the mothers are going to have to get used to their children's illness.
For which illnesses is the BICOM therapy applicable? Here are just a few of the most important. Acute and chronic allergic illnesses, such as rashes or hay fever, neurodermatitis, asthma, migraine, all types of pain and neuralgic conditions, internal organ disorders, acute and chronic inflammations, for example of the stomach lining, of the small and large intestine, rheumatic illnesses, injuries, fields of interference due to scarring, problems in the dental and orthodontic regions, chronic fatigue, and many more.
I have another story about a girl that affected me quite deeply. Both cheeks terribly red and full of encrustations. That was the first time I felt a bit anxious, and I thought, I've run out of ideas what to do. It's good when you have colleagues, when you know where you can get help. Well, one of them called me back and told me, now it's time to do this and that, etc. And after 6 days, the nightmare was over and done with. Without cortisone, without antibiotics, without anything else. I have had many more experiences like that, but I've documented this one, and that's the great thing about it. BICOM therapy has a certain status in my capacity as a doctor, roughly 30 to 40% of my time. But delegating therapy work to my assistant, she works 100% with it. In other words, she only calls me in when she is not getting any further with treatment. I will never forget how I had 2 or 3 cases of chronic colitis in the practice, which were already in the final stage. With these patients, that means that the intestine was supposed to be removed. And that was soon going to be the next step for these patients. An operation involving removal of the intestine and an artificial anus. And in quotation marks, we actually managed to restore those intestines. In other words, shortly afterward, the bleeding stopped and they were able to call off the operation. For all the clinics and doctors who had treated them before, remember that most of these patients had experienced 10 to 20 years of suffering, including cortisone therapy, etc. Well, they were absolutely amazed. No one really believed that something like this is possible.
It goes without saying that the BICOM bioresonance method is being applied not only in general medicine or used by therapists for natural healing remedies, it is also being utilized in other specialized fields. For instance, by allergists, dermatologists, by ENT, ear, nose and throat specialists, by gynecologists, urologists, orthopedists and ophthalmologists, by surgeons treating accident and trauma injuries, and by internists straight through to doctors for sports medicine, as well as in the field of dentistry. Patients must no longer have such a fear of dental treatment because the pain can be reduced using the BICOM therapy. Swelling disappears faster, wounds heal better, bleeding is reduced, the gums are strengthened, and dental materials can be tested for patient compatibility to avoid long-term signs of discomfort. In general, fewer injections and tablets are necessary. And here is yet another field, veterinary medicine. That segment is now capable of treating many animals successfully in cases where all hope had been given up before. Making a correct diagnosis for animals which, as is well known, are not able to speak is not easy. The BICOM device helps to find the exact causes behind the complaints involved, and the therapist is often in a position to treat even serious diseases considered incurable at a rate of success hardly ever experienced before.
One thing I find fabulous is treating leishmania in dogs, where orthodox medicine was never able to do a thing until now. Meanwhile, definitely 10% of all the cases I treat here are leishmania because no one else can do anything against it. People come to me from everywhere to have me treat their animals' leishmania, and up until now I have managed to reach 100% negative with all of them. Absolutely impossible in terms of orthodox medicine.
What are the principles behind the way BICOM bioresonance therapy works? To find that out, let's look at some very basic things. What is matter actually? Matter originates when energy is compressed. In other words, matter is compressed energy. You see that a material particle is full of energy. And solid things like objects, but also the bodies of living things, are composed of millions of particles, which in turn are compressed energy. So matter has a twofold aspect. 1 part particle and 1 part radiation, meaning energy. The radiation has precedence over the particle and thus a decisive influence on structure. All matter, for example even one bacterium, a toxin, a nutritional foodstuff, has its own wavelengths and a frequency pattern of its own. What is the situation with material particles in the body, the cells? They transmit and receive waves with distinct frequency patterns. In other words, communication takes place. This forms the basis for the body's self-regulation. We could also compare this with a modern radio device. Information is exchanged via distinct frequencies. Back to the body. As long as cells are able to communicate with each other unhindered, meaning that the body's self-regulation is therefore intact, that body can be described as being healthy. Let's now imagine that an undesired substance manages to get into the body, for example mercury, a pathogen or pollen. What happens? To understand this, we're going to make a short excursion into hydrological research. Depending on age, the human body consists of 40 to 80% water. Water has the ability to form clusters and store information due to its dipolar properties. Let's take a look at a water molecule. Hydrogen has a weak positive charge, oxygen a weak negative charge. As a result of this dipolar nature, the molecules can combine with one